Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 26th Lebanon Board of Works meeting. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We'll move on to the roll call of members. Clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Gentry.
Present.
Jane Taylor.
Present.
Bill Stoner.
Present.
Dick Robertson.
Present.
Alan Milburn.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Before we get a motion here, there was something I noticed that I wanted to clarify with board's consent. We wanted to clarify in our motion that we made last week concerning the bids that the approval of the RDC was contingent upon the additional cash contribution if needed. Now, we don't think that's going to be needed in this case anymore based on what's happened last week, but I just wanted to make sure the board was okay with that amendment to the minutes.
Okay.
Is that all right?
That's
okay.
All right.
So we would need to approve the amendment?
Just approve the one on the 12th, and
Okay.
then I will amend the one on the 19th, and we'll bring it back next time.
All right, we can do that. That works as well.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So with that, we'll consider the minutes from our March 12th meeting, and would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those here say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, minutes from our March 12th meeting are approved, and we'll address the minutes from our March 19th meeting next week.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is department head reports. First up, Police Department, Chief Wormuth.
Not me. I always refuse Okay, during the period between March 12th and today's date of March 26th, the Lebanon Police Department responded to 750 calls for service. A total of 31 citizens were arrested for crimes. We had 11 arrests for one known warrant, arrests for drug offenses, being marijuana, 3 for driving while suspended, 2. There we go. 2 for operating while intoxicated, 2 for operator never licensed, 2 for domestic battery, and 1 for residential burglary. A total of 32 handgun permits were issued by office. That's quite a record, but anytime the news starts talking about gun confiscation, our handgun permits go up. And beginning today and continuing throughout this week, Captains Chad Morgan and Jeff Work will be at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy attending the Police Chief Executive Training course. And I have nothing else to report at this time.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, next up, Fire Department, Chief Batts.
Good evening, everyone. Since the last Board of Works meeting, Lebanon Fire has made 127 emergency calls of service, logged 367 hours of training, performed 40 commercial inspections, installed 2 car seats, and participated in 1 public education event. 60 firefighters from Lebanon, Center Township, and Whitestown participated in our Saving Your Own class. We held this hands-on training last week. Firefighters were put through a physically and mentally stressful obstacle course near zero visibility. We got rave reviews on the class. Everyone seemed to enjoy it and came away with a lot of good new information. Next week, firefighters Alex Knipp, Noah Rinker, Tori Bossum, Jacob Fussell, and Brandon Beasley will begin Fire Officer Strategy and Tactics. This FOSS class is being hosted by Wayne Township in Indianapolis. This is a base certification for our firefighters if they want to move up to the lieutenant's position or to be a ride-out officer. It's just a very good jumping off point for new firefighters to continue their education. So we're very happy that these 5 firefighters are wanting to enroll in this class. They volunteered to do it. So it tells us that they're ready to take the next step in their career. Today we met with our ISO representative to begin our information exchange. Everything went very, very well. We're going to be continuing to exchange information with ISO through April 16th. So we're looking forward to getting this very important project completed. The final vote has been executed by the Boone County Fire Chiefs for locution. And as we talked about a couple meetings ago, locution is automated dispatch. And we're looking to implement locution towards the end of August, the beginning of September. This is a very important project for Boone County Public Safety, and it'll definitely aid in dispatch times for all fire and EMS units. Currently, Boone County's legal department is going through legal review for the contract. And I didn't put this in my notes, but we also completed our work performance evaluations last week on all department members. This is a physical skills aptitude test that all firefighters must take at least one time a year. Everyone passed with flying colors. We're very happy about this. And we also use the WPE if someone's out for an extended illness or injury.
Okay.
That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
sir.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right, next up, Parks and Recreation. John?
Good evening. It was a very tough decision. We had probably 27 applicants for our programs director. Happy to announce that we've hired Allison Morton. She'll be starting April 5th. Just going to be a great addition to our Parks family, so real excited to have her on board. Lebanon High School baseball season started tonight. Our first home game's tomorrow night. We're going to open those restrooms up in Memorial Park, which people are excited, and they'll stop coming in the office too. But we're going to open that restroom up down by the baseball field. The others will wait because you never know what kind of weather we'll have. We could have 20 inches of snow next week, right? Like we did this Saturday. But no, it's just too cold.
We're not supposed to say that S word, John.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you. No, it's easier to open and close that one. It still takes about 4 hours. The others take about 8. So we're going to open and close this one. Hopefully we won't have to close it, but we're going to open that. Anyway, baseball season tomorrow night, hopefully, if we don't get torrential downpours like they're calling for. Pool season is quickly approaching too. We have 17 pool parties already booked for this season. We have less than 10. I think we have 8 spots left or so, 8 or 9. Co-ed softball registration is now open. Must have 10 plus players on a team. The cost is $375 per team. Packets are available for pickup at the park office. The Daddy-Daughter Dance will be April 14th from 6 to 9 p.m. The dance will be held at the Herman B. Wells Community Room at Lebanon High School. Tickets are now on sale. It is $15 per couple and $5 for additional child. I think we have over 275 already signed up, so get your tickets. We aren't turning anybody away. Real excited about the turnout there. It's just a great event. I tell you, these dads get out there and nothing better than spending some time with the daughter, and they go out like a mini prom. If anybody's seen them on Facebook, you gotta look at some of those outfits. But it's a nice time for daddy-daughters. Also, the Easter egg hunt is coming up this Saturday at 10:30 at her cabin. The Easter Bunny will be present for pictures right after the Easter egg hunt. Register now at the park office. We just like a number. And we have over 8,000 eggs out there, and Mayor, you'll attest. I think Tanya's out there too. I've seen about everybody out there. We put those 8,000 eggs out, and it takes about an hour and a half, and in 20 seconds they are gone. These kids are good, man. So great time. Hopefully the weather will hold up, but rain or shine, we will have an Easter egg hunt. And yes, we did have one in the S word again. Hopefully that won't happen. Still have lap swimming available on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings from 5:30 to 6 at the high school pool. Please register at the park office. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions from the board?
John, did
Yes,
you
sir.
say that the mayor and Tanya were out hiding?
Hiding, yeah.
Okay, so are they disqualified from
Yeah.
participating?
I tell you, one year we had squirrels that actually took the prize winners, because we have some prizes, and they were disappeared. We saw squirrels out there getting them. They blew down later from a tree. But squirrels, you'd think they'd go after the chocolate. They went after the ones with the prizes, which is just painfully confusing. But yeah, it does happen. It is cool. That's all I had.
Thank you, John. Any questions from the public? Thank you, sir. All right, next up, engineering. Kevin?
Good evening. Update for tonight, East Street, let you know what's going on over there. We've been working on a lot of concrete pouring over the last couple weeks since the last meeting. We've poured the driveway that goes into the IGA parking lot. We've also been working on half of the PNC driveway. We're getting ready to open that up and close down the other half of the driveway. The library north driveway is done. Miscellaneous alley and residential driveways have also been poured in the last 2 weeks. Work expected before we meet again. We can expect that all that curb and driveway work will wrap up, and basically the only concrete work that will be left by the time we hopefully get back here next time, assuming the weather holds out, will just be sidewalk work. And we will have the stone graded and ready for asphalt, and we will be ready to start asphalt that week of April 9th. So again, weather dependent, assuming that goes forward, we'll be ready to start putting asphalt down April 9th, wrapping up sidewalks after that. Our tree order has been placed, so all the tree selections for the tree lawn between the sidewalk and the curb is in, and those will go in later in the month of April. And we're just moving forward. There is some water main work still to be done up on Woodland Drive, some minor tie-ins and some additional services. Those probably won't be done before we meet here again, but sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks, those will be completed. So as you can see, a lot of things are nearing completion. Northern Interchange feasibility study. This will be up for a decision later tonight, but we are still moving forward with gathering information and preparing for a public planning workshop that will take place tentatively. We've scheduled that for the 16th of April. Assuming things go as planned, we'll get those notices out later in the week and be ready to have that open house to allow residents to provide feedback for that process. Jamison Street Bridge, give you a quick update there. The bridge is gone at this point. The majority of the riprap has been placed on the banks. Those banks are essentially stable at this point. There's a little cleanup work left to be done. There's still some drainage improvements on Busby Street that have to be done. But in general, that's moving along as planned. We're still continuing to coordinate with the Boone County Highway Department, who is managing that project, and we'll look to wrap that up in the next couple weeks. The Regional Industrial Pretreatment Facility, quick update there. We are just awaiting our final engineering report from Pace Energy and their consultants, but we have put in place interim treatment conditions that will facilitate the opening of Ken's in mid-April. Private force main is being installed that will, on Ken's site, will pump to the existing gravity sewers along Edwards Drive. We're working with Duke Construction to complete an expansion of the Edwards Drive lift station, and that lift station will eventually be dedicated to Lebanon Utilities. And then Ken's is working on installing a new, well, actually it's a used, they're bringing in from one of their other facilities in the country, what we call a dissolved air flotation system. It's a fancy word for a bubble system that floats off some of the solids that come out of their wastewater and allows you to screed that off and send it away as a sludge to be treated elsewhere. At this point, those temporary conditions put us in a good position where we will not need a regional pretreatment center to be up and online until sometime in the spring of 2019. So the interim conditions are being quickly finalized, and we're still in target for Ken's to open as planned in mid-April. Downtown. Let's talk a bit about downtown. It's been a wild couple of weeks there. We did open one bid on the 12th from White Construction, a very qualified contractor. That bid package was determined to be responsive and responsible, or the contractor, excuse me, was determined to be responsible and responsive. This board held a meeting on the 19th, a week ago, to approve that bid package and award on the basis of the base bid. Now, the base bid is the work that will happen around the square, the work that will happen in the intersections of State Road 39 and Main, State Road 39 and Washington, State Road 32 and Meridian, as well as Main Street west of 39 for one block, the block that will go from State Road 39 to West Street, there at the corner of the post office, including the intersection of West Street. The remainder of the project was not awarded, and our plan is to rebid that in the fall of this year. We felt as though the alternate prices by White Construction for that alternate were just a little too high, and we think we can get much more aggressive pricing in the fall, so that is our plan. In general, though, even rebidding that phase of the project will keep us in general compliance with our original schedule, which is to complete that portion of Main Street in 2019 and before the end of summer in 2019. So we're still on target to do that and planning to move forward. The project approvals are based on bond closings, and those bond closings are scheduled to be completed around April 25th or 26th. So none of the actions of this board will be ratified until those bonds are closed and we have the funds to actually pay for the project, but that is moving forward as planned, and we will issue a notice to proceed once those bond closings are completed. And the project will still have 195 days to reach completion from that notice to proceed until substantial completion, which would essentially be all improvements open for traffic and ready for our use. The base bid amount, just to remind everyone, came in at $7,193,000. And with contingencies and inspection fees, we're probably looking at about an $8,050,000 project total. That will provide us with approximately $2.85 million left in our bonding capacity, whereby we will rebid and hopefully reconstruct West Main Street between West Street and Patterson. And we will construct those bid packages in such a way that we'll have alternates, just like we did with the first package, so that we can right-size that project and bring it in under budget. So at this moment, we're ready to move forward. We've got some legal review issues that we're working through with our inspection contract, and of course with the bonding. But we're really close to a green light on that, and we're about less than 30 days away from that green light. The only other update I would have for you is our pavement assessment rating study update. We just want to wait to make sure we're out of the freeze and thaw cycles that really do a lot of damages to the road before we begin that. So our plan is to begin that study sometime in April and move forward with setting our directives for pavement resurfacing going into the summer. So,
okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Mayor,
Oh,
this is
sorry,
probably
Dick.
more
Yeah.
for Rob. Did we ever get our agreements with the county worked out yet?
We had a meeting with Mayor Gentry and Mr. Clutter and one of the commissioners last Wednesday, and we're working through finalizing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We should have that before final closure and sale of the bonds.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, next up, Planning Department, Ben.
Good evening, board members. Planning Department operations for the last couple of weeks. We completed 34 building inspections and issued 25 permits, one of which was a new residential construction permit. We always like to see those. And then one also, if you missed it, it only took a couple of days, but we did issue the demo permit for the existing Pizza Hut building. I think it only took them just a few days to get that down. So I think they intended to only be closed for about 3 weeks while they made the transition to the new building, so they will be up and running in the new building shortly. Code enforcement operations, we do still see a number of trash and debris complaints that we are addressing, and then also, as I mentioned before, we're doing a much more proactive approach to our junk vehicles and vehicles marked for towing, working directly with the police department at least once a week. Makeda is going out with a police officer, and they're marking vehicles, usually at least a dozen each time they go out. So you can see those numbers on junk and illegally parked vehicles are going up. So we're definitely taking a much more proactive approach to that. In terms of our special projects, the comprehensive plan, staff did meet with our consultant last week on Tuesday. We really spent probably about an hour and a half reviewing the goals and objectives that were established in the previous comprehensive plan 10 years ago to figure out what was still relevant, what needed to be modified, what needed to be just kind of scrapped at this point, and figure out what goals should still be part of our discussion moving forward. So we did that, and then we also took their team on a driving tour of the community just to kind of show them the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything that's in Lebanon, mostly good, of course, but talk about some of those things and also where there were some potential opportunities moving forward. We are finalizing also the steering committee for that project and sending out invites for that, and to have the first meeting with that group sometime in April. In terms of the permit software, we are starting to wind down that project and then have a launch date in April at some point. We spent the last week working with the iWork team to try to figure out exactly how we're going to transfer our existing data to the new system. We're working out a few kinks as it relates to that to make sure that there's a meaningful data in the new system. So we're working through that. And again, expect to have an official launch date still sometime in April for that new software. In terms of what we are now calling the Lebanon Entrepreneurial Building, formerly known as the Estes Building, the offering sheet for that building was approved by the Redevelopment Commission at their last meeting, which was last Monday. And then we held the required pre-bid meeting for all potential offers this morning, and we had 3 potential groups here this morning. We held a meeting in here, answered any questions they had, kind of walked through all the project details, and did a walkthrough over at the building with them so they could take pictures, etc. Each of the groups seemed pretty excited about the project, and we do expect, hopefully, that each of them will submit a bid for the building. Again, just as a reminder, offers for the building are due May 14th, and they'll be open at the RDC meeting that evening, and then we'll be reviewing those over the next month, and then a bidder will be selected at the RDC meeting on June 11th. And that is all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, next up is Street Department. Larry?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Board. Since the last council meeting, we've had 17 additional calls on top of the other things we do, and they responded and resolved in a timely manner. Report on our last snowfall. 7 inches plus of snow. Everything went well. Equipment was ready. Men was ready. We got called out at noon Saturday. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit earlier, but we done a little bit something different Friday. We done some pre-treating, and it really worked pretty well. The snow didn't really stick to the streets until about noon when we started to get the additional snow. I called the mayor about 3 o'clock, said, "Hey, Mayor, everything's looking pretty good. Was getting ready to go home." Well, 3:30 come another snow blast, and that kept us out to about 8:30 that evening. But everything went really well. Sunday was a great day. Kind of melted things down. So the only thing we did, we had a broken blade on one of the plow trucks, and that happened on Lafayette Avenue where the storm sewers were put in. A couple years ago, over there by the bridge, we're going to have to do some work there, grind some areas there, and get some asphalt put there. With the weather predicting for this week, we've called off our crack sealing projects for 3 additional roads this week, so we can't really do any crack sealing with the moisture in the cracks, so I want to get those dried out before we do anything. The last thing I have is reminding city residents, if it doesn't snow, which I don't think it will. Yard debris week, next week, April 2nd through the 6th. The street department will have the annual brush cleanup, yard cleanup for the residents who's got leaves from the winter months and last fall. They can rake those out to the curb, and we'll come by with leaf machines to pick those up. The only thing we're asking residents to do to make sure that no limbs or any other debris is in the leaf piles. We'll pick those up at a separate time. The last thing I've got, I'm going to report on spring cleanup, but that'll be next week or next council meeting. I'll have some additional information for the spring cleanup, and that's all I've got for right now.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank
And
you.
again, I really appreciate all your guys' hard work this weekend. That was kind of a surprise, but
Good job.
Good job.
you guys did a great job with that. Okay, next up, Communications and Community Development. Joe?
Evening, everyone. Wanted to briefly piggyback on what Ben was talking about, the Innovation Center. When we walked through today, a big thank you to the Parks Department. The folks that Ben referenced, just couldn't believe how clean it was and how we wanted it to be a kind of a blank canvas, and the Parks Department really helped out with cleaning things out and having it all ready to go for whatever is going to go in there. And so hats off to John and the gang for doing a magnificent job. And it was not only cleaned out, but it was actually clean and swept, and it just blew everybody away that, oh wow, this is much further along. This is a much more workable space now with the help of our Parks Department. So just helping out other people is fantastic. Speaking of which, absent issues for the month of April is coming up on Wednesday, April 11th. And hot off the presses, that location will be the Police Department Training Room located downtown. That'll be 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. And appetizers, as always, will be provided. As you may remember, we've kind of been all over different parts of our community. And so we're back to the evening. We were at lunchtime at Highway 32 Bar and Grill. Had a good turnout there. Hoping for more of the same. Again, on April 11th from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. And the location being the LPD training room, appetizers provided, as well as beverages, and being able to have some good conversation. Also, our newsletter for the month of April will come out on the 2nd, Monday the 2nd. And if you have any events you'd like publicized, we kind of look through, obviously, the newspaper and on social media, things like that, to be able to add events. But if you wanted to make the person who does that job, make that job easier, you can send information that you want publicized to info@lebanon.in.gov and talk about a little bit about your event, and would love to be able to talk about what's coming up. For example, the Easter egg hunt's coming up this weekend. All that's on there. Contact information, time, place, everything like that is already on the website. So if you have an event like that, we'd love to help you publicize that free of charge, obviously. And while you're on that website, you can take a look at the very top of the page. Will be a couple weeks ago now, the mayor gave his State of the City address for 2018. That address is in its entirety is on the website, lebanon.in.gov, right there at the top of the screen. So you can click on that link and watch the speech. And so continuing to add things to our website as we go along, but continue to add to it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any upcoming events for the spring, guys are kind of thinking about as the weather starts getting a little bit warmer here?
For the spring, we kind of finalizing things for our Lebanon City Market. I can report that in talking about changing the venue, that's been a tremendous boon to the Lebanon City Market. A lot of vendors that were kind of on the fence about being part of Lebanon City Market, that didn't want a market that was once a month and then once every other Friday. They were still kind of on the fence. There was a little trepidation, but now having it being announced as a weekly market, we're getting a lot more response from folks, and we're changing things up and asking vendors to pay this year to have some buy-in, to be able to turn around and use that as marketing for the market. And there are folks from not only our local community, but surrounding ones as well. And so it's been exciting to see. We had a popcorn farmer reach out today, wanting to be part of the market, and so wanting to be able to kind of expand what Lebanon City Market does. And we feel that moving it right along the main thoroughfare near the Innovation Center will do nothing but help add to that. And so we're going to have, we plan to have quite a few more vendors, and just being able to be more versatile with that space.
Okay, great. Any other questions for the board from Joe?
Thanks, Joe.
Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, and stormwater permit, Dave?
How you doing? Since our last Board of Works meeting, we had 12 calls, mostly for flooding or in alleys and stuff. So we're going to look at a few of those. Continue to do our weekly inspections with Auburn Meadows, East Street, Stokes Commons, Ken's Foods with them, and then pretty much finishing up Pizza Hut, but we're doing a few there. We have to do those after rain events and then weekly. We repaired one catch basin. Haven't repaired it all the way because of the weather, but we temporarily fixed it. And we just continue to clean catch basins, especially with the rain coming up. And that's all we have.
Okay. Any questions from the stormwater side for the board, from the public?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
All right, with that, is there any other old business come before the board?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to new business here. First item I have up here is the interchange feasibility contract amendment approval. Kevin, you mind coming up and explaining that one for us?
Yeah, thank you. And I would point out, too, that we've got a couple of folks from American Structure Point in the room. Ken Olson, who's our project manager, and Luke Karen, both with Structure Point, that could help us if we need to really dive into some of the weeds on this amendment and the technical aspects of it. But essentially, what we are asking for tonight is an approval of a contract amendment for the interchange study. The total value is $22,500. That's an add to the original $86,000 contract. And the real reason behind this came after our first meeting with NDOT and discussing what they would like to see. It was a productive meeting, I felt, a very good meeting. We had a lot of people in the room, a lot of the key decision makers at NDOT, especially in the Crawfordsville district. And you know, we had kind of went into this study under the preconceived notion that the 52 interchange needed to be closed. And it still needs to be closed, and they feel as though it does need to be closed. But in order for them to look more favorable on the project, they would like to see some further analysis on some of the problematic issues with that interchange. So, and that's really the main nature that's necessitating this amendment because of some additional study needed for that 52 interchange. They want us to do a weaving analysis. The weaving analysis is where you're coming off of 52 and you have to weave across 2 lanes of traffic to get to the left exit. They want to see that. They want to see real engineering analysis and traffic analysis performed on that. They want to understand historic crash data for that area. They want to understand, as I said, the problematic issues and really quantify those with the interchange. I think everyone knows and believes and has set the tone that interchange needs to be closed. But what we're looking at here from a funding perspective from the state, they want to really understand that, and they want to justify some of those things. They want to understand the operational problems with that interchange. And there's a couple of things at play here. One is the 52 interchange is scheduled for some improvements, some maintenance, significant maintenance costs over the next few years. And those monies, the way NDOT works, those monies are coming out of what they call their preservation fund. That's what they use to overlay streets and bridges and do more maintenance projects. Well, a new interchange would come out of their mobility fund. That's where the federal highway sets dollars aside, where the state sets dollars aside for new road projects, for improving mobility in the transportation system. So the real driver behind this is understanding any problematic issues with the design of that 52 interchange. And so that they can then, if they can really show problem issues with that, then the state can justify moving some of those preservation dollars to projects on the mobility side and hopefully better fast track and better fund a new interchange. So that's really what they're looking at there, at least on the first item in the contract amendment that looks at the weaving analysis for I-65 and 52. The second thing that they want us to look at is looking at some intersections on 39 at 250 North or Anderson Lane, and looking at how that intersection currently functions in an analysis there, as well as the intersection of Witt Road and 250. Now those are quite a bit of ways from where we think the new interchange will go at 300, which is why those analyses weren't included in the original study. But part of the picture from NDOT, again in justifying the project, they want to look at how possibly traffic on 39 could be diverted towards this new interchange and diverted from the downtown Lebanon area. So they want to look at that. They also, with this, they want to understand if the interchange were to be reconstructed in its current location, how that might happen. Well, the best way to look at how that might happen would be, what if 39 takes a right turn onto 250 North and goes straight past the intersection of Witt Road and back out to where the new interchange is. Again, not saying that will happen, but they want to understand, could the interchange be reconstructed into a more, problematic-free interchange if it were reconstructed in the existing location, as opposed to a move that generally speaking seems to be more favorable in NDOT's eyes, which would be up to somewhere in the 300 area. So that's where all this is really looking at, is looking at the problems that the current interchange has, looking at how a relinquishment of 39 through Lebanon might be accomplished and what traffic impacts that will have. And that also breeds to the third point on the contract amendment, which is an overall update of the travel demand model for the area. So, again, these are not things, in my opinion, that we should have already included in the project. These are really things that are being asked, or strongly asked, requested, required perhaps from NDOT, as they want to see done with this analysis. And then the fourth item, the public information meeting that we're adding, I have no excuse but to say that's my fault. We intended for that to be in the original contract, and it's not there. I think we had so many conversations about that public information meeting that we assumed it was there, but in hindsight and reviewing some of the meetings with American Structure Point, well, they weren't at a lot of those discussion meetings that talked about exactly how we wanted to run the project. And it's not typical that a public information meeting like we're planning for April 16th would be included in this type of analysis. That's typically something that's done way further down the road in the process. So again, shame on me for not getting that, making sure that was in the original contract. So we do need to add that as well. So that's $3,500 for the public information meeting, and $9,200 for the crash and weaving analysis of the existing interchange, $4,200 for the intersection analysis at 39 and 250, and that also includes 250 and Witt Road. And then the travel demand modeling update is a total of $5,600, bringing the total proposed compensation for the amendment to $22,500, increasing the contract from $86,900 to $109,400, which, if you remember back before we started the project, we had estimated the study would cost around $100,000.
Okay. So we're not actually asking for the appropriation tonight, just to clarify for the board. This would just be asking for contract approval, subject to council appropriation and legal review of that contract. So it's just to let us sign that amendment. So any discussion, questions for Kevin? Fortunately, it happens when the goalposts get moved on you. You do have sometimes have more additional costs with it. So
yeah, I will say though, but if you read between the lines, and it's not even reading between the lines, NDOT flat out told us they need to see some of these things to help them justify spending more money for a new interchange. So this is a good thing. This is a sign that NDOT really wants to work with us, although they just have some process and some things in place that require to be met. But every indication is that they still support this project, and in fact, they can support it even more so with this additional analysis.
Kevin, do you know how much they have budgeted for the resurfacing of the 52 ramps? Top of your head?
Do you guys remember that?
I think that was $2 million, and the other, they had the deck overlays for like $3 to $4 million.
Yeah. So it's somewhere in the $5 to $6 million they have in resurfacing the ramps that go to and from the overpass, and then and that also included a new bridge deck on the overpass. So there's a significant amount of money that the state is getting ready to spend in the next 2 to 5 years on that interchange that we would really like to help give them the ammunition they need to reallocate those monies. That's a complicated question for NDOT and the bureaucracy that just exists there, but by doing this additional analysis, that will help them make that decision. Keep in mind, an interchange ballpark costs $20–25 million, so a $6 million boost from the state can really help make that project a reality.
Okay.
Kevin, what are their plans to add lanes on 65 to that area?
Yeah, you know, I didn't mention that, but that is included in part of this analysis. The state would like I-65 to be 3 lanes in either direction, all the way to Lafayette. Well, eventually, all the way to Chicago or to Lowell, I think, where it stops being 3 lanes coming out of Chicago. So that is a long-term goal. It's not something that has funding or necessarily a project or a DES number associated with it, but that is a long-term goal of NDOT's. So with this additional analysis, that would look at least widening to 3 lanes. Currently, the 3 lanes stop at the overpass just north of Menards. So this would extend 3 lanes up to wherever the new interchange might be configured.
Okay. My next question is, in the public meeting, information meeting, is that going to be, what all is going to be in that meeting? I mean, what all are we going to get back in that presentation? I mean,
Our intention is that meeting is really held pretty early on in the process. Up till now, we're just really data gathering. We're gathering traffic data, accident data. We'd be doing additional accident and traffic data associated with the intersections, associated with the interchange, the existing interchange. And the idea of how that meeting would be functioned would be to really have some large aerial photography of that whole area up there and start putting some constraints on that map. You know, here's where some environmental concerns are, here's where archaeological concerns are, here's where recreational concerns are, here's where traffic is a problem, here's where accidents are an issue, and let the residents sort of see all the constraints that go into these types of decisions at both the local level and the state level and federal level for that matter, and let them sort of say, well, how about here, how about there? You know, let them sort of draw on those aerial photos and begin to put together some concepts. So again, held very early on in the process so we can see what kind of suggestions come out of that that we could then take into further study for, you know, geometric layouts and things like that associated.
Okay, later on, or do you think we're going to have the need of any more public hearings later on to come back to the public to just give them an update or anything where we're at? I just usually see things as one public information meeting is never enough.
Well,
it's better to have more in there and not use them than it is to keep coming back and asking for.
Well, Dick, I think the goal of having this meeting is to engage the citizens in that area to be understanding what the criteria we have to design around. However, if this project was ever to move forward, NDOT would host those meetings if there ever was a project associated with this study, right? I mean, this is really just public hearing associated with the formation of what our feasibility study is.
That's a good point, Mayor.
That's true.
I understand what you're saying, but yes, there would normally be public meetings associated with further justification studies, with further development of construction plans, and those would be held down the road in the second and third phases of this project. You know, for a feasibility study, it's not something you usually have a lot of public input, but we want to because we understand the complexities of the area. So my anticipation would be this is enough, one study for this type of feasibility study. Now, I'm more than happy to host a public forum to sort of roll out the results of this at the end of that. I don't know that we necessarily need Structure Point to attend that. We can take the public through the results of the study and avoid any further cost increases to the project.
Okay, I'm good.
I have a question. Is the intent of the public meeting, in addition to just doing the right thing of communicating with our citizens about what they think and we feel and looking at that whole thing, but is this going to be limited to to the existing interchange, I mean, the problem that we have there and 250, or are you going to be talking about 350 up to 300?
No, I think we're going to be, the intent for that meeting was just to put all the data, you know, in some sort of format that people can quickly and easily look at the constraints that we would have in choosing where the final location. Is it at 250? Is it at 300? Is it 350 or 275? You know, that's what we hope this process will tell us. And we legitimately want to hear from the public on how this would impact their property and their lives, and do this from a standpoint of involvement and transparency in the process. So, yeah, I don't think anything is necessarily set in stone at this point. And although NDOT does want us to look at, could they realign the existing interchange to a more traditional interchange configuration in the existing location, that doesn't mean that's going to be the best solution. That's just one more thing that they've sort of mandated that we look at. Personally, I think there's a lot of constraints with that existing location because Prairie Creek essentially wraps around that existing interchange and provides a lot of difficulties from a floodplain and environmental issues associated with extending 250. If you were to drive west out from the intersection of 250 and Witt Road, you would pretty quickly run into Prairie Creek and some large wooded areas back there, some floodplain. So there's some practical difficulties with that location, but there's practical difficulties associated with any location where we're going to build a project like this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions, concerns, comment from the public? Okay. So just to remind the board, so what we're looking for tonight is just a motion to approve the contract amendment concerning the interchange feasibility study, subject to council appropriation and legal review. Okay.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion is approved. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, next item up here is the overhead utility line, 69 kV request for approval. Just to remind everyone, this is a project the utilities have been working on for quite some time, but this is a requirement due to the fact we passed a resolution before Alan and Dick were on the board here with us, where we designated the entire city limits of Lebanon as an underground utility district. So in order for the utilities or any utility provider to install an overhead utility line, they do have to come and request Board of Works approval. So I'll turn it over to Trace, let you introduce it for us.
All right, thank you very much. This particular project is our 69 kV South Loop project. It really runs from the new substation that's out on 100 South, and then comes along 100 South, goes up Indianapolis Avenue to the bowling alley, turns to the west in between the school and Subaru, then turns north through the old Conservation Club, which is now part of the park, and then turns left behind the row houses at Noble Street, along Noble Street, and then goes north up Hamilton. That's how we get into the other substation. The location of that line, the route of the line's all been approved. This is really just the next step. One of the questions that gets asked is, why do we want to go overhead versus underground? And that's a really important question. There's about part of the rules that are in the resolution say that we need to make sure that any lines that are built, if we want to build them overhead within road right-of-way, we need to file a waiver for that. Well, we put the waiver together. The cost for going underground versus overhead is about 10 times. So it's significant amount of money. Now we're talking 69,000 volt line and 12,000 volt line. And when you get to 69,000 volt, it's just not practical anymore. Six times is about what it costs for just the distribution piece of it. So that's why we're looking to do this. About 85% of that line route actually has existing poles already where we're just going to replace the poles in place. They'll just be taller poles, bigger poles that are bigger around. So that's the reason we need to ask for the waiver. So what we're looking for is we request a waiver of the resolution 2017-01, which establishes an underground buried utility district for the 69 kV South Loop project. That's the only one we need at this time. We have not needed one to date. Everything else has been, we've stayed, just replace poles where they are. Anytime that we have to do something where we're going to replace poles that are, or place poles that are in right of way where we can't replace them in place, we're going to come before you and ask for this. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. I do have forms that have been filled out by us for what these are.
Any questions from the board? Again, I know we've talked about this. Oh, we were here for the resolution. We passed that. Any questions from Alan or Dick about either why we're doing this project or anything like that, or put your mind at ease about this?
Just from a historical standpoint, the existing 69 kV facilities that we have put in are on overhead now, right?
Yes.
That's my only point, is the fact that overhead always has comments because of just the aesthetics and what it looks like and all those things that make a difference. But we have it today. It's just the fact we don't have it where you're wanting to put it today.
Exactly.
So it isn't anything that really is different in a sense as far as the overhead. That's my only comment. I think that might be important. Some people might not recognize that we already have that.
Oh, yeah.
And that this would be something new and something different that would be a question.
Well, I think the other thing that's important is that we're actually going to clean up along Indianapolis Avenue, because we have it on both sides. And we're going to do our best to take it all to one side and be done with it, to clean it up.
And Alan, too, just for some inside baseball here, there were other reasons why we passed that resolution other than just trying to, and unfortunately the utilities kind of got caught up in that net, so to speak. But there were other reasons why we passed that resolution for that. So, also, Trace, you want to mention why we're doing this and how it provides the backup in case of emergencies for the city from an electric standpoint?
Oh, absolutely. This actually goes into the new station that's going out there, which is out on 100. It's actually already up. It's ready to go. It's waiting for us. What we're doing is we're picking off a line from that station that will be its own, what's called a breakered or protected line. What that does is that allows us to bring it all the way across and bring it into a second point into the city. So that way we actually can break our entire system up in a ring, and any time that we have an issue in one part of that ring, we actually have multiple sources to get to fix that ring. So that the importance of this is really having that redundancy.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the board? Any questions, comments, concerns from the public? Okay. At this point, I would entertain a motion where we approve the waiver request from Lebanon Utilities concerning the 69 kV South Loop project.
I would move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. That is approved. And we'll have the paperwork signed for you after the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trace.
Do you have copies, or would you need one?
I'll take one. I think I need one. Yep. Okay. Is there any other new business come before the board?
No.
Any discussions, announcements, anything like that? Okay. Would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Claims?
Oh, claims. I apologize. Forgot to put it on the agenda. That's why. Actually, second page. That's why. Okay. Would entertain a motion to approve the claims.
I move to approve the claims.
We have a motion to approve the claims. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Now I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. We are adjourned. The city council meeting will begin at 7:15.